Hello, everybody. Welcome to It's a Crime. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Linda, and today we have a very special guest. We have Scott Reisch from Crime Talk on. Scott is a practicing defense attorney in Colorado, and he actually, I got a little bit on you, Scott. I was trying to find out a couple things about you. So interesting that you served in the Marine Corps and you opened up your law firm after leaving the Marines, and you started Crime Talk. I can't believe this. 2.5 years ago already, which is crazy, isn't it? So I actually was on your channel last April, I think it was. It was last spring, crazy enough. Time has gone by so fast. So everybody, please welcome Scott Reisch. Welcome so much. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I know you're super crazy busy.
Thank you, Linda, for having me. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of fun.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of cases, and then we're going to take some questions. We'll take some questions off and on through super chats, and people already super chat there. One thing about the program that I use, sometimes it skips and hops different comments. So thank you so much, IB Me. So I have to scroll. So I don't have a back office like you do, but
I still scroll. It's just I understand it's much easier when you get a super chat to catch your attention.
Yeah, but even just to find them sometimes in this program, it goes all over the place. So sometimes I'm a little scattered, but we're going to do our best. So I think what we'll do is first we're going to dive into Letecia Stauch and the Gannon Stauch case, and we will chit chat, and then we'll go to some of the comments because I know people have a lot to say about her, and then we'll go from there and talk about Lori Vallow and whatnot.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So first, tell me in your opinion or your thoughts, what about Letecia going pro se, as your experience and just overall thoughts about going into that position.
Yeah, my opinion is that if you're going to court, you should have an attorney. Letecia Stauch is faced with obviously very serious charges, capital murder offense that carries life without the possibility of parole. Why would you not want competent attorneys, which she had there to represent her? My general experience is when people go pro se, they're doing one of two things. They're crazy, like a fox, okay?
Yep.
And the other alternative is they're just playing games, okay? That's my general feeling. I thought early on in this case that Letecia Stauch and her attorneys didn't get along well because they wouldn't go to the jail and see her. And, I don't care what you're charged with. I don't care if COVID's going on. I had a guy who was, they said, I was called and said, would you take this case? It's a homicide case. Yeah. From the time that I got that call to the time that I went and saw him at the jail was probably about 45 minutes. That's what you do to establish a good rapport with your client. So you can say, hey, trust me, sit down, shut up, let me do my job. And, Letecia Stauch, she thinks she's the smartest person in the room from what I can tell. Little does she know, she has no idea what's coming her way.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you about that because I want to talk to you about that as well, about the mountain she's going to be climbing. I don't know if it's a case where she underestimates what's involved in this. Like you said, she thinks she's the smartest person in the room and she thinks she's got this, or if she has some sort of master plan. The one thing I'd like to know, and I think everybody would like to know too, is if she is going to pull, I wouldn't say too much shenanigans because the judge said, I'll shut that down right now if you do that. But if she's planning on doing some things and playing some games, what do you think she could be up to? Or, this is crazy, right? Would you agree this is absolutely crazy? Have you ever seen this in your experience? Anybody who's going through these kinds of charges?
I have seen it, and I've never seen it turn out well. It never goes very good at all for the person to go in pro se. At the end of the day, there's no way that somebody for their first involvement in the court system is going to be able to figure out court procedure, the rules of evidence, what tactically can come in or shouldn't come in as it relates to this. You have to pick a defense. right? You have to pick a horse and ride one.
Right.
All this, well, it was the maintenance guy, and then it was this, and I run away. I mean, all the different versions of the events that she gave. Maybe her evil plan is just to simply get up and testify, and hopefully, the jury will believe her. But it's just, when people go pro se on difficult cases, it just turns into a circus.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it seems like. And I have zero experience in being an attorney. However, it doesn't take a genius to know that this is going to be, it's going to be a crapshoot. Let's just say, you know what I'm saying?
She certainly has, enough time to focus on doing this. But normally when you are being held on a capital murder offense, you're usually in a high level of security, which means you maybe get out of your cell 1 hour, maybe 2 hours per day. So when they go to the law library to search it, they put in their little request saying, oh, I need this case. They get that case like 2 days ago. And like I said, how do you know what that case is supposed to mean? You can read, a little summary in the statute book that they give.
Yep.
But okay, it may stand for one proposition. It may stand for multiple propositions. It may have been reversed. How are you going to figure that out? We have Westlaw here in my office for 5 attorneys, and that cost me $1,000 a month. The jail's not going to be giving her unlimited Westlaw search there as well. I don't know what their plan is, but just no idea.
This is interesting. On Friday, they had a hearing. And basically going back saying, look, I don't think everything was covered that it was the hearing before. And we just want to make sure, security wise on these papers that she's getting. And so Mr. Tellini, who is the advisory counsel for Letecia, delivered these 1,800 paper document, and then also added case law on top of that under 100 pages, he said. And basically the case law, from what he said, was just for people who are representing themselves. But the defense did not give a heads up or tell the prosecution that, hey, I'm going to be dropping off this case law. Was he supposed to? Is that, or he could just be like, not a big deal?
He should be able to drop that case law if he's advisory counsel.
Okay.
As an attorney, you can go in, pretty reasonably just about any time and see your client. There's a little statute that, if they refuse to let you see your client, I think you can sue them and get $100 or something like that. But my experience is, pretty much I've gone to the jail at probably late as 10, 11, 12 o'clock where something's happened. It's like, I need to talk to my client now. And, you got your credentials and they'll let you in. They usually don't let you in during a brief period where they're doing count or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you can have unlimited access to your client. So he shouldn't have had to tell the district attorney or anybody that what he's doing for her. He's advisory counsel, but he's not a tattletale to the prosecution anyway.
Right. Okay. So maybe they're bringing that up just because they're bringing up the issue that this is already a security issue and they just want to make it verbalized. They verbalize it, right?
Yeah, I think the district attorney should probably just focus on his case and let the sheriff run their jail. And, they're not going to give that material to Miss Letecia Stauch without going through it to see if there's anything in there. It's probably going to have no staples. They're going to make sure there's nothing in the paperwork. They're going to flap it around and lift it up. And I assure you, I'm sure this attorney, Mr. Tellini, it's like he's going to do his job. He's advisory counsel.
Yes.
But he's not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize his law license.
Of course.
So,
of course. Yeah. It's just interesting how things are playing out because basically it was really interesting. I actually had a video. Well, I was supposed to record it yesterday, but we were talking backstage there that my ring light died. And I had made a little joke actually that my ring light died of natural causes, not the Lori Vallow Daybell kind of natural causes, but actual natural causes, and it died. So it's coming tomorrow, you guys, if you want to know about this. But it was really just interesting about how they were talking about, the inmates having personal boxes, and will this paper fit into the boxes, because right as it stands, there's 26,101 pages of discovery and now, interesting, Letecia actually has 2 times she gets to go to the Letecia's words, law library. She gets to go to the law library for 2 times for 2 hours each time. So she had said the week before that she could only get 2 hours, but it's actually twice a week for 2 hours.
So instead of having multiple attorneys from the public defender's office, investigators, probably multiple investigators at the public defender's office working on her case, they will probably be working on this case literally nonstop between now and trial. Had they remained on the case, she's going to get to spend her 4 hours a day in the law library reviewing discovery. Yeah.
Now let's talk about this. Talk about the mountain, the absolute mountain she has to go through. I mean, like you said, it's a mountain for you guys. It's a mountain for the attorneys to go through this already. Now you have somebody who wants to represent themselves and have a huge, it's a huge obstacle, basically, right?
It is. And I don't think most people realize the amount of work that goes into it. Sometimes you'll get a case that the discovery is, literally a couple of pages thick. You start talking a few thousand pages. I think I had one once, it was like 160,000 pages of discovery, and it was like a full-time job just when you thought you were done with it. And it's not like you just review that, once and you've got everything. Yes, you can take copious notes as you go through it, but at the end of the day, you have to read it, analyze it, figure out how it fits into the bigger picture. If it does it not? There's a lot of things that come into play, and maybe she gets these 4 uninterrupted hours and 2-hour blocks where she can simply focus on that. The phone isn't ringing. Maybe that's good time for her, but the reality of it is it's going to take much more time than that. And there'll be some duplication in the discovery. They'll print stuff out 5 times. You're like, I got a duplicate. But they're obligated to turn that over, because if they don't turn it over, somebody's going to make a big deal. Oh my gosh, you withheld 6 of the pages that have been produced already.
Yeah, even though it's the same type of thing, but different sentence and formatted the way they said it.
Exactly. So they have to turn over their entire file.
Yeah. So it was interesting because they said there was 11,000 pages just in FBI, from the FBI. And so this is going to be fascinating.
Probably the, cell phone data, search warrants. I think the FBI was doing search warrants on various cars.
They couldn't get any GPS though on, sorry, I don't mean to, I just thought when you're saying that they don't get any, they didn't get information, from what I understand, from one of the rental cars for GPS.
And I'm not, the GPS information. Yeah. I don't know, but that is a lot of discovery. And here's the problem. Like, how do you know what you don't know? She's going to be looking at that stuff. And like, does she know, okay, here's our GPS data. Who do I contact to help plug this in? I don't think they're going to give her access to the internet where she can go to Google and punch in the GPS coordinates and track it.
She can't go get polygraph.com this time.
Does she know that she needs to maybe get, an electrical engineer to see what the waves were, things like that, depending on the reach and things like that of various cell phone data. You don't know that. That's why she's going to have to hire experts. The public defender would have been able to hire experts. Now she's going to have to ask the court for money to hire an expert. And the court doesn't have as much money.
Interesting. So, wow, this is interesting. So she would have to get them to pay the money to hire an expert for her so that she could figure this stuff out.
Correct. If she wants an investigator, she's pro se. Now, there are judicial directives here that if somebody is, in fact, pro se, that the court should assist them in the sense of providing financial resources. Clearly, she's indigent. She doesn't have any resources. But So she can say, hey, court, I need an investigator to go talk to these people for me. Will you approve a court-appointed investigator? The judge will say, fine, I'll give you $20 an hour at $55 an hour, whatever rate they pay. It's state, so it's reduced rate. And then she's going to have to keep going back for more and more and more. And the judge can limit that.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if she had attorneys, that wouldn't be an issue.
So do you think that by going pro se, that this is going to be able, or this is going to enable her to push this trial out and out and out, potentially?
That may be what she's thinking. Although, you know, she didn't extend the preliminary hearing date. I believe she was going to keep that. And, but once she gets into it, I think the judge has warned her, you know, you're going to proceed pro se. I'm going to hold you the same standard as an attorney. We've already wasted a year. I guess we're over a year now. It's December, right? December.
Yeah, January 27th is when he went missing. So
yeah, so over a year now.
Yeah.
So we've wasted a year. She was arrested, I think, in August?
She was arrested March 2nd.
Okay.
Then Gannon was found, and then she was then she got brought over, beat up some people who were transporting her, and then we can't forget that, right?
Yeah. So here we are. I mean, a year later, and really nothing's taken place on this case. The judge is going to, at a certain point, is like, game on. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, because she also had the two competency evaluations, right? So
she did.
Yeah, so that prolonged from September to just recently after Christmas in January, and now here we are. Now this is what's crazy to me. Okay, I could see a traffic ticket, like I'm going to go and I'm going to fight a traffic ticket, but you are sitting here for some major criminal charges. How in your mind in a person's mind, do they not think, holy crap, I need all the expertise I can get. I want to use somebody who, like, you know, like, I don't care if it's 1 year or 100 years or however many years they've been practicing criminal law. It's better than what my experience is. I mean, you sit there, and even me combing through these things, I mean, I can comb through them and understand to a point, but we don't know. You could be like, yeah, I know it says that, Linda, but also there's these little nuances here, little nuances. We talked about this last week, right? And she has no clue.
I mean, absolutely. And, you know, and this is what most people don't realize. And this is really why in a major case, it's so time consuming and they become so expensive. The report will say, we observed A. Well, you can't assume anything. So you have to go see if A is still there. Go talk to the witness that said, I saw A. Oh, did you really see A, or did you see A and B kind of mixed together?
Right.
And, you know, people after they've had time to sit, think, and reflect upon things, like, well, yeah, maybe you're right. What about, I didn't think about that. Why didn't you mention that? Well, nobody asked me. You can't do that if you're sitting in a jail cell.
Right.
You can't do it effectively. You can send your investigator out, but hell, most people don't know that you hire private investigators on cases to go do that, because guess what? If I go on my own, I've now become a witness in the case. I can't,
you can't
testify to that. So I doubt that she's even aware of that, other than the fact that hopefully her attorney said, we're going to have an investigator come out and go over everything, with you as well as along with the attorney. So they just have I think she has no idea. I think she's going to be completely overwhelmed. And if she thinks that, I think she mentioned that this is all very stressful in one of her letters to the judge. Why can't we just get this resolved? It's just a big misunderstanding. She's going to realize, I think, rather quickly, this is not just a big misunderstanding, that they want to send her to prison for the rest of her life. And hopefully she'll realize the errors of her ways and ask that the public defender's office be appointed.
Yeah. I mean, but is there going to be a point where she can't do that anymore? Where it's like, listen, you are in this deep. You can't go back now. We can't appoint anybody to you because it's going to take too long, blah, blah, blah.
If the court determines that she's doing it for delay purposes,
Right.
then the court can probably make a record on such issue. I remember, I won't get into specifics, but there was a client that before I got to him, literally would have a very good attorney, fire him the night before trial. Have a good attorney, fire him the night before trial. Well, about the third or fourth time, the judge said, "Nope, we're going to trial." He goes, "Oh, I can't, Judge, I can't go pro se. I don't know what I'm doing. It's so sophisticated." And the DA was arguing, "No, have a seat. Let's go to trial." Judge's like, "Have a seat. We're going to trial." And the courts can find that you've waived your right to counsel, even if you somehow have this epiphany that, oh my gosh, I think I need an attorney all of a sudden. It's not a game. And she's acting like, from an outside observer, that it's a game, and she's trying to play games.
That's what it seems like, doesn't it? It seems like she's just this giant, like she said, this game of cards, and she has the ace in the hole, right? That's what she's saying. Thank you, Gina.
She should probably turn it over.
Right? And that's my next question I'm going to ask you. Now, I see there's a couple super chats I want to get to just so I don't miss them. Here I am scrolling. Thank you, Artiste Soundbox. Super sticker there. Thank you. And Manglia. Thank you, Linda and Scott. When Lori comes up, do you think murder charges coming for her and Chad? Okay, we're going to get to that. We're going to finish with Letecia, and we are definitely going to forget to that. We're going to forget to that, Scott.
All right.
We're going to get to that.
That's easy to do.
Get into it and talk about it, right? Let's get into it and let's talk about it. One more here. Scott, do you think she's trying to escape? Also, how can you claim insanity and then all of a sudden you are sane enough to represent yourself?
Okay. Do you think she's trying to escape? First, I think the jail there in El Paso County probably does not trust her. She's been charged with one attempted escape, plus the other one in Kansas when she slipped out of her handcuffs. Oops.
Right.
So they're watching her. Could she be trying to do that? I wouldn't put it behind her based upon that track record. I'm sure the sheriff watches her everywhere she goes.
Yeah.
Well, let's say, just to be clear, they weren't claiming insanity. They were claiming competency. And one can be competent and to be declared competent and then represent themselves. And remember, it wasn't her. It wasn't Letecia Stauch saying that, "Oh, I'm insane. I'm incompetent. Send me down to Pueblo for evaluation." It was her attorneys. And it could have been something as simple, and I don't know this for sure. So it could have been something for sure where I've had clients where they want to talk about everything except the case. Like, okay, that's great, but you want to talk about all these tangential things. One of the things that the client has to be able to do is to assist your attorneys in representing them. And I would have a guy where we would talk for hours on the phone. It's like 2 hours. We just spent 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back. I asked you what time it was, and you told me how to build a clock. And so at a certain point, it's like, you're just not in the same reality. So that could have been a reason, for the basis for that, not being able to assist in the defense. Maybe there was something there, some weird erratic behavior. I don't know. Public defenders, they've seen it all. Most of their clients have mental health issues. Not all, and I say most, a large percentage of clients that are represented by the public defender's office have mental health issues because so many of them are, either, homeless or drug and alcohol issues, things like that. I mean, stuff we've all represented people on, but they can usually spot the faker. So there had to have been some good faith basis for that. The question then, apparently 2 professionals said no.
Now, notable though, a couple days before her second competency hearing, she was on a Zoom with the judge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen this or not. She was spinning around in circles, flicking on the lights on and off and going, "Oh," did you see that?
I did not see that. No.
Oh, Scott. I mean, really, like she flicked the light on and off. I saw it. And
Mhm.
she spun around in a circle and, like that numerous times. And I just thought, oh my God. And so when you have that, the timing was, you know, interesting because it's a couple days before you're going your second competency hearing.
Yeah.
So I could
I
only
did
imagine.
not see that
Oh my
particular
gosh.
video, but it wouldn't surprise me. And maybe she's doing that, but when you go in for a competency evaluation, you're dealing with highly trained professionals that can spot somebody
Yes.
that's truly ill and not competent versus somebody that's malingering because they don't want their case to go on anymore.
Right.
The truth's going to come out.
It always does, even if it takes a long time. It always does.
Wow, but sometimes most of the time it comes out.
Yeah. Now let's talk about this for a minute, because let's say, okay, you're the defense attorney for her, let's say.
Okay.
And this is before pro se. So she tries to break out of jail, right? She's writing a letter to the judge. She slipped off her handcuffs and assaulted an officer, and anything else that's coming that she's doing, lying numerous times, like just story's not straight.
Yep.
How, from your standpoint, what are you thinking? What's your strategy on this? Are you telling her just to shut up? Like, what are you doing at this point?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would be very straightforward with her to say, listen, anything, if you haven't figured it out yet, anything you say can and will be used against you, taken out of context, misconstrued. So you want me to help you? My advice would be sit down, shut up, and don't write anything to the court. Because if it goes to the court has no ability whatsoever to get involved in plea negotiations, to be concerned about the jail conditions, that this is a big misunderstanding. Not his job. The job of the judge is to be an umpire for the game.
Both sides, yes.
Calling balls and strikes. That's it.
Right.
The judge cannot get involved in anything along those lines. So nothing you can do writing to the judge is going to help you in any way. My advice would be sit down, shut up, and let me do my job.
Yes.
I'll explain to you what I'm doing along the way. I'll explain why I'm doing what we're doing. But at the end of the day, you make three decisions: who's going to represent you, whether you take a guilty plea, and whether you testify at trial. So
yeah, let me do my job and stop it. So you tell her this, say you tell her this on a Monday, right? By next Monday, she's writing another letter and she's pulling some stuff. Now what does that conversation look like? I told you so.
Then I go back there and say, listen, I don't know what it's going to take. And of course, you take your investigator as a witness so that everybody knows, can document it, and make sure you keep it all in the up and up. But you have to let them know, like, you're only sabotaging yourself. You're hurting your own case. Why are you trying to do this? Maybe you want to go to prison. Is that what you want to do? No, I don't want to go to prison. Well, that's what it certainly looks like. And just let them know you're harming your own case.
Yeah. So now there's two things. One, they were talking about in the hearing on Friday that she's going to be able to, if anybody who she wants to contact in this list, she can just request to contact. But what does that mean? Are we talking anybody? Like, she can actually request to contact Landon, Gannon's mom? Or
she has a right to investigate the case. And as long as it's not done with the intent to harass, molest, alarm, intimidate, as a factual witness, she, or hopefully an investigator that she'll learn to request, will, hopefully do something for her. But once again, unless she has, the witnesses don't have to cooperate with her. They don't have to talk with her. But in theory, she's supposed to be able to do that. As a defense attorney, my investigator and I could go talk to every witness, even if there's a protection order, against my client from talking or having any contact with somebody. But as long as it's for the legitimate purpose of investigating the case, the defense attorney and their investigator can do that.
that's
She's going pro se. In theory, she can do that.
In theory.
Now, the district attorney is not supposed to tell any witnesses, don't talk with them.
Right.
The only thing a district attorney can say is, you have a right to not talk to them, and it's your choice if you don't choose to do so.
Right. So now let's say the person does choose to. Would they then have Michael Allen alongside? I'm talking about the close, or no, it's just one-on-one.
Yeah.
Well,
my guess is most people aren't going to talk with her.
Right.
Most people aren't going to talk with her.
Right. So so a person's not obligated, even though she has a right to. Everybody has a right to say yes, yay or nay.
Correct. I mean, every witness in a criminal case has a right to be interviewed as many times as they want by whomever they want. They also have a right not to participate in any interviews. Like, hey, I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you when I get to the witness stand.
Yeah, because could you imagine? That's incredibly difficult, especially, with those involved and emotions are running high and it's already been pushed out. Now we have Letecia thinking she can take on her own thing and have her, what seems to be her mentor, Ted Bundy. She's noticeably thinner, I saw on Friday. I would estimate a good 20, 30 pounds less. So I was kind of wondering if she's going to pull the Bundy and try to. She did complain about her handcuffs in the law library. In the law library, she said, well, I can't even go on the computer with these restraints. How am I going to do that? She was upset.
Welcome to the world of being a prisoner.
Right? Shouldn't have
and representing yourself. You're a flight risk. You're in a maximum level in that jail. Get used to it.
Yeah. So we'll take a couple and then we're going to hit Lori Vallow soon. But Courtney says T wants to inflict the maximum amount of pain on the court and family. She knows she doesn't have a chance. She's messing with everyone. It seems like in my eyes, it just seems like there's always something with Letecia. When it gets really quiet, she stands out in a crowd. Let's just put it that way. What are your thoughts?
It seems to be the trend. That's for sure. Maybe she has come to the conclusion that things are not going to go well for her. So she just figures
she wants to get
make a joke, try to make a joke out of it, so to speak. And hopefully there'll be something that will result in, an unfair trial, but that's not going to happen. Okay. Like I said, nobody does it themselves a favor by going pro se.
Yeah. And maybe too, she just feels like if she does it herself, she's more in control in her own mind.
Yeah, maybe that. I mean, who knows what's going through her mind? She seems to be rather impulsive, just given the brief history we've had with her. And what comes to mind is obviously her little escapade being transported back from extradition from South Carolina. But then again, the attempted, jail escape or conspiring to escape. So yeah, she seems to have some impulse control issues.
Yeah. And when it gets quiet, she likes to speak. So I think it's going to be, I don't think this is going to be the end of the shenanigans. I think there's going to be more.
I think this is just the beginning.
Correct. Elaborate on that. Tell us, Scott. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a circus. She's going to want to get up and ask questions. They're not going to be the right type of questions. She's going to want to give speeches and not ask questions. It's going to be ridiculous. And hopefully there's somebody in her family that has some sort of influence over her, and maybe they can convince her. And I'm not saying this because, I want her to walk or anything like that, but I think it's just better for everybody that if there is a conviction, that it's done completely above board, due process is afforded, so that there's no air built in down the road.
Yes, for either. I agree. I get it. And yeah, I mean, this way is not the best way. And it's not the best way for the family. That's for darn sure. And it's not the best way for her. I mean, really, it's a dumb move, in my opinion. It's a dumb move, but she wants to do it. So go for it. Do what you want to do. Yeah. Say what you want to say. Now, when you get this case or any cases, right? Like you said, you have to sit down, review all the information and go, okay, where am I going to take this? What direction I'm going to go? That's my understanding, right? So what happens in her case? Mr. Tellini is going to be able to talk to her about what direction she should go? Or is she the one, he can't say anything? He just like shows her, the options and she decides.
In theory, advisory counsel is simply there to ask questions or answer questions. I'm sorry.
Right.
Answer questions that she may have about criminal procedure. Hey, how do I lay the appropriate foundation to admit a photograph? What questions do I need to ask? That's what he is there for. But if he's already delivering discovery in case law, he needs to be very careful, in my opinion, because if anyone's ever been advisory counsel, you can quickly fall into the trap where suddenly you turn into a research boy, you turn into a runner, making photocopies, you're an investigator. He's got to establish those boundaries. He's not the research clerk for her, and he's certainly not the attorney on the case. He's only there to advise her questions, and he may or may not even get the discovery in the case. He's advisory counsel, so why should he have it? It's different. If the federal court asks you to be advisory counsel, you're expected to step in at any time. I once had a client who won pro se at the appellate courts all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
Wow.
Because very, very smart. So the case comes back and they're like, Scott, will you represent this defendant? Sure. What do I do? I'm like, what do you need me for? You're doing pretty well. He's the exception to the rule. I assure you of that. And, but it was an appellate practice and he kind of tagged along another case. But anyway, he wanted to do his voir dire at his new trial and literally said, Judge, can we approach? I would like Scott to take over the trial from here. And the judge looked at me and said, Scott, do you need like 5-10 minutes? I'm like, I kind of had a feeling, Judge, let's do this thing. But in the state court, you're there just to answer questions. That's it.
Yeah.
So she said halfway through the trial, oh, I want an attorney. You don't have one. You have an advisory counsel.
Right. So he might not get, well, I know he got part of it because he dropped that 1,800 pages off. But what's interesting is then, I mean, it'd be hard, right? Because if he's not getting it, she's asking a certain question, I guess it'd be just general then. Hey, what do I do with the cell phone information? What do I do with the...
Yeah.
It's actually a good thing.
That's what it should, that's all he should be able to do.
Yeah. I'm wondering.
He may say, oh, you need to get a cell phone expert. Well, maybe he has one that he can say, here's the number or something. But then submit your motion to the court to see if you can get approval for X number of hours and the work to be performed. But if, in theory, if he says, no, I don't know of anyone, he's not obligated to go find one. It's on her. It's her responsibility.
The judge said too, if you want to file motions and do this and that, it's not on your whim. They have a right to say, no, not going to do this or that. There was something he was talking about. Like you said, don't expect them to be a runner boy and kowtow to everything you need to do. Basically, in a nutshell, is what he said.
Yeah.
So, interesting. Okay, let me see. Phoenix says, can she access the case material in her cell? No. Or is she limited to 4 hours per week in the library? So my understanding is she's allowed to have this paper copy now of the 1,800-page core discovery in her cell. That's what they said Friday.
Okay. And that doesn't necessarily shock me. Normally somebody can keep, 1,800 pages would fit. I mean, what is a stack of ream of paper? Is that 500 or 1,000?
500, I think. Yeah.
So, it's probably this high. But when it gets past much more of that, the jail's not going to let her do that. They probably put the rest of it on a CD-ROM so that she can put the CD-ROM into a computer and play it while she's there, give it back to the sheriff when she's not using it. But, and I don't know, I'm not going to say what the El Paso County Jail computer system is in the law library, but most of the clients usually say it doesn't work most of the time. There's just problems. They want to print something off. They got to wait 2 days. It's just a big hassle for everyone.
Well, hopefully they get that figured out. So at least she doesn't prolong that and complain about that because we know something's going to be coming down. Pamela says her court case would be hilarious if it wasn't such a tragic loss of sweet Gannon. I'm quite confident that she will be removed more than once.
it is, like I said, there should be some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some solemnness that goes with going to court, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is a court of law. People should dress appropriately to go to court, in my opinion. There should be respect. Only one person talks at a time. We don't talk over people like, talking heads on TV do. It's not allowed. And, whether you like the judge or not, you still stand up. Yes, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. That kind of thing. Hopefully she doesn't act up and, reduce the significance of what's taking place, because we are really talking about the people of the state of Colorado, not just the family, trying to find the truth, seeking justice as it relates to the death of Gannon. So
yes,
I hope that she conducts herself with some dignity and respect, if nothing more, just for the court.
Yeah. I will say, when I saw her the last time for sure on Friday, she wasn't her regular Letecia. She was, other than complaining about the handcuffs, she was more of a calmer demeanor type. So hopefully that'll just continue and she can actually mature enough to do the right thing in there, give it a shot for herself, and not, I just don't see it though. I mean, it's always going to be something. She's still doing letters. The judge actually said, "Hey, I got your letter." And I went, "Uh-oh." And he said, "You still want to represent yourself?" She says, "Yes." Well, she was complaining about not having access to an attorney. Well,
it's funny how that works.
You chose to represent yourself. So why are you writing me a Dear John letter again? Like, she's just constant. It's just constant. Now, last thing I want to ask you about this before we move on to Lori. She stated recently about the two pieces of evidence she feels are aces in the hole. She said, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. She said there's two pieces of evidence that she said no science can refute this evidence. What kind of evidence would it have to be? Not what is it or what you think it is. What would it have to be for her to, show her innocence? Because I know this is two different things, right? Letecia thinks when she could produce Eduardo, right?
Yeah.
This is Eduardo. Oh, here he is, right?
A confession, but who's going to do that? Confess to a crime that they're not charged with,
right?
So that Letecia Stauch can walk. I have no idea what she's talking about. And one of the things she may not realize is that if you hold those aces too long, you don't get to play them. Because at some point, when she gets to the arraignment stage, she's going to have to turn over basically any evidence that she intends to use at trial. Okay. If it's just her testifying, that's fine. But if there's some physical document, there's something that she wants to introduce as evidence, the prosecutor's going to have to get a copy of that. Otherwise, she's not going to be allowed to use it.
So it'd be sooner than later she'd have to produce it, right?
Usually, if there's reciprocal discovery. If the defense says, "Hey, I'm going to use this," or they come into some evidence, if they intend to use it at trial, they're going to have to turn it over. If you're going to, and frankly, it'll probably, if it's so helpful, and if this ace in the hole was there, why wouldn't you play it now so you could go home?
Right, ASAP. Right, great point. Great.
Makes me think, why is she not doing that? And if she isn't, because she's more than likely playing games.
Bottom line, that's what it's been. Honestly, that's what it's been, in my opinion.
So I don't think you'd be wrong.
We'll see. That's too bad because, the preliminary hearing should have been this past week. And now we're pushed out. I think she goes in May, right? I believe.
Correct.
April, May.
Isn't May 5th coming to mind or something? Maybe I'm just making that date up in my head.
I know so many dates, Scott. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up on that, Letecia, and I'll just take this moment for a minute. And if you guys are enjoying the live stream with Scott, please give a thumbs up below there and check out also his his channel. I did put it in the description box below, but check it out after this live. And I think you're going live tonight, aren't you, Scott?
We are 6:00 tonight. We'll go live. Haven't had a chance to do a show yet, so maybe the show will be the live this evening to make it easier for everybody.
Oh, right.
Particularly Frank.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's been busy, hasn't it? Things are going weird. I mean, I heard about your microphone going wonky last week. My ring light went off. There's just some weird stuff happening. I don't know. People are joking that it was maybe Chad Daybell's portal potty. That was
Yeah, it's so weird. It just all of a sudden we had this weird sound. We changed the cable out. I don't think that fixed it, or maybe it did. I think it did. But then we put the old one back on, and literally, I think Frank like blew into it, and it was fine again.
Oh, that's funny. Well, even this ring light that I ordered, it came in, like I said, this afternoon, and I went to go put my camera on there, and they didn't give the proper piece like they did the last version, the last one. And so good thing I had that last one. Otherwise, I'd be hooped again. So it's just like, I don't, if you're paying $200, you want the right,
because
any amount of dollars really, but you just want the right stuff. Give me the right stuff.
Yeah, it's never easy, and I mean, I am actually a very positive person, but I've just come to realize, that things will always take more time than you thought they would.
Yeah, it just is what it is, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we have one, and then we're going to dive into Lori. Hello, Linda and Mr. Reisch, Crime Talk mod and aficionado here. I would like to know what case has interested both of you the most.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, I still think the Chris Watts one was by far had the potential to have so much interest. There's still a lot of interest in it, but I think that the fact that there wasn't a trial where people got to see the evidence, will always, create that mystery of, something didn't go on.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting is that is like you have this guy that looks like typical suburban dad. In a million years, would you have thought that guy would have killed his wife and 2 kids and unborn child? No. Most people probably would say no. But what does a murderer look like?
Right.
Yep.
Can't judge a book.
You can't.
Nope. Okay, for me, I think is that's your that's your top one there?
I mean, there's so many. I mean,
no, there is.
I mean, who's the Jennifer Dulos?
Yeah.
That, is still interesting. Now the attorney's going to roll and testify against the girlfriend. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, there's a lot of interesting cases out there. I mean, there really is.
There really is. There's definitely no shortage of that. For me, in the cases that I cover, I think what's super interesting to me is obviously the Daybell case. So much. I feel like I'm only scratching the surface, and I've done, I think, over 100 videos at this point. And some of them I go deep. I start ripping the timelines and figuring this and doing all this stuff, right? But for me, that is the most interesting because of the different aspects to it and so many people involved. Sure. Whereas my heart goes to Gannon because that's the one that's affected me the most, I would say, and the most passionate I am. Not that I'm not for the Lori Vallow case for the children and those who were killed or died. But yeah, that's just the most fascinating. I feel like I could do 100 more videos and still only scratch the surface of these people.
Oh, and could you imagine if we had access to the discovery?
Oh, I wish we
Vallow case. I mean, it'd be so much to talk about. I mean, but now we just have to take it in little piecemeal.
Yeah. When would we get to see that, Scott? At what point do we get to see that?
Normally it's released once the case is decided. It's gone to trial, etc. Then they'll usually make the discovery available. But you never know. Everybody likes to hold on to it because there could be an appeal. They don't want to. It just depends. The Chris Watts case was the exception to the rule. I've never seen a district attorney's office so open to releasing that information. Normally, it's fight tooth and nail to get something like that.
There's been a lot of oddities in that too, because I remember this is before, I think it's before I even started my channel. I remember you saying on your one of the videos that you've never seen in your 20 some odd years of practicing how the person who's interviewing would bring their father in. I remember you saying it.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Unless it's a juvenile, you don't normally see that. Even if somebody's a witness, I mean, just a witness, not a potential suspect, could be a potential suspect. Your dad in when you're a grown adult.
I know, it's weird.
Very odd. I mean,
there's a lot of oddities.
Very, very much so.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to Lori, because we don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, do we? On that one. Okay. No. Now let's talk about the latest thing with John, Rob, and Mark Means.
Okay.
So they just had that hearing last week, right? I believe it was a week ago. You were covering it. That was last Monday or something, right? So they get on right away. It's like, we got to get you off. We want to go talk about this things on the breakout room. Breakout room, it's called.
Yep.
Okay. So they go, they're chit-chatting for what feels like hours. They come back. Now they say this has been vacated. So the change of venues vacated. What else was in March? The dismissal of charges was vacated.
Motion to dismiss, change of venue. And they were there to discuss the motions to compel regarding turning over expert witnesses.
Right.
That's what they were there for.
What would that take in order for that all to happen? Because it seems like, and I replayed it and I did do it in my video, it seems like the moment the judge says, we're going to vacate these, big smile comes on John Pryor's face. Is that a tactic, or is that like he's legit happy? I feel like he's legit happy that these were vacated. What would cause John Pryor to be happy that a dismissal of charges, because he's very, very vocal. He wants these charges dismissed and he wants a change of venue, and he's very emphatic about it.
Yeah, I mean, he may have been happy that that was the day that, the prosecutor's ready to go and nothing's going to happen. It could be he knows something that we don't. I don't know. But clearly there was something there where the court had everybody assembled, was ready to go. They have this breakout session. The court then comes back and says, all right, for good cause, we're going to vacate this and the next court date, I think a week or two later, and we'll set another status date in the future. And seal the transcript. Like, wouldn't you love to be, a fly on the wall on that one to see what's in the sealed transcript?
Yes.
It could be lots of, like I said, it could be great speculation. Maybe they found the smoking gun and Mr. Wood will be removed as the prosecutor. Or
Mark wasn't
maybe there's going to be something where new charges are coming down. You just don't know.
Because I know John has really wanted the Daybell case to be separated, Chad's case to be separated from Lori. He wanted from the get-go, do not combine these cases. So they do it. And now, because I'm just trying to get in the head, like, if I'm John and I've been pushing for a change of venue and pushing for charges to get dismissed, why would I be happy about that being vacated? I wouldn't.
Well, what they were they were going to charge, obviously on that particular day, they were dealing with the expert disclosure issues, but the whole motion change, there's something that has to be dealt with, sounds like, before they can get to that issue. And so really it's going to come down to, I think, more of the expert disclosure issues, I think.
I was just going to say, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the expert disclosure and it's like, we still get to keep it. So there you go. Because he was upset, right? Basically saying, this guy the person who's doing the surveying has an extensive background but yet it's not professional. This is just right. Am I right? This is exactly what you're saying. He was basically the surveys can't count.
That's what I read into it, was that, there's supposedly this survey, but they won't release who did the survey and under what circumstances, their experience, basically their data. If you retain somebody to do a survey to get a change of venue, you have to go out and say, these are the questions that I asked. Basically, have you formed an opinion, or are you aware of this particular case? How many people did you ask? How many people did you ask? How many people actually spoke with you and then answered your questionnaire? What was the
numbers?
What were the numbers that were done? And if that's not, that's all stuff that people need to look at and challenge to see if it was a wide enough sample to make it valid. If they basically sat around and talked with their family across the kitchen table, that's important. Someone should know. Oh my gosh, everybody's made up their mind in the city. Oh my God. We just can't get a fair trial here.
Yeah.
Prosecutor has a right to know, how many people did you talk to? Sometimes I've seen surveys done like that where they put the people's names so they can go back and talk to them later. Change of venues are tough. We'll see if he gets it. I don't think the case is going to get dismissed either.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. Maybe it's just a case of something happened about that day about the witness list or the survey, and he's just gloating because, great, haha, nana nana boo boo, Rob Wood, right? And Mark Means is like, whatever, because he wasn't too worried. Matt was saying, what do you think CW's chance of 35C is?
Somewhere between slim and none. A 35C is when you go to trial and you lose and you basically come across some new evidence, or you find the attorney's performance was deficient. Did they not do something that a normal attorney would have done in this particular circumstance? The only way that you can raise really an effective 35C, and the only way you see it when somebody takes a guilty plea, is it's in cases involving immigration. Ooh, my attorney didn't tell me if I pled guilty, I was going to get deported. Mr. Attorney, did you consult with an immigration attorney? No. Well, you probably should have done that unless you were going to familiarize yourself with immigration law. Who has time to do that? It changes literally on a daily basis, right? At least that's what my immigration attorney friends tell me. and so that's the only way. But I think we've got this up at my website at scottreisch.com. It's the transcript of the Chris Watts plea where he says that he's satisfied with his attorneys. They did a great job for him. It was his decision to plead guilty. I think he has zero chance of getting a new trial or the plea withdrawn in any way. Not going to happen.
Yeah. I'd be darn surprised if that happened.
If he got his plea withdrawn, out of just sheer embarrassment for saying that he wouldn't, I would give like $1,000 to his defense fund if he got his plea withdrawn, just to punish myself. Okay. But I'm not worried about having to write that check in any way.
Yeah.
Whatsoever.
No kidding. Don Marie says, what a great chat. Thank you, Linda. As a mod for Scott, I absolutely love the collaboration. Awesome. That's awesome. People are stoked about this today. We're going to have you back on again.
Hopefully you're getting lots of views and maybe some more subscribers, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go. Go over there and subscribe to Scott. I know a lot of my viewers are already subscribed to you. They watch you quite often. And
as they mentioned, they watch you as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we were after the truth, right?
And I think we stick to the facts. I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's important.
From a lot of people out there.
It's important. I love timelines. I love the facts. Give them to me. Sure, I'll toss my opinion. I'll say it's my opinion. But at the end of the day, I just want the facts. Like, show it to me. I want to see what's going on, and yeah, exactly that. Anna says, Scott, I don't think Alex killed the kids. Do you think they could have taken Alex's phone to Chad's house to pin it on him? His death was too suspect no matter what they say. Thanks for your comment and your super chat, Anna, and all to those who have super chatted. I'm trying to do things at once here.
I don't know who killed the children, but if I was the defense, I'd be saying Alex killed the children. how do you prove that they put the phone there to put it on Alex? Who knows? I mean, once again, I think Lori Vallow thinks that she is one of the smartest people in the room, but she's not. So I don't think she's that sophisticated.
And the interesting thing about that is there in the affidavit that I read, they didn't have information at that time on Lori's cell phone. So we really don't know where Lori's cell phone was that day yet. We don't. All we know is where Alex's cell phone was that day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff coming forward in there. And, but yeah, we don't know yet.
No.
We just don't know yet.
No. Monique says, when will the murders of Lori's husbands come into play?
I don't think it will. I think there'll be motions in limine preventing that. It really comes to, I mean, if you look at it from a prosecutor's standpoint, would you love to be able to say everyone around this woman dies? Well, most of the people, at least in that area of Idaho, probably know that information already. So from the defense perspective, they're going to say, Judge, this is unacceptable. It's a violation. It's 404B conduct, uncharged conduct, which even if it had a little bit of relevance, the probative value is far outweighed by its prejudicial effect. And I don't think it's coming in.
Well, yeah. And I mean, husband number 3, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pick one. Number 3, right, died, obviously. They're just ruling it out. They went back, they looked at it, they said no. 4th, we know what that happened there. Well, Alex says and claims that he killed him in self-defense. Yep. We know how that goes. Maybe they will go back on him. You know what I want to know? I want to know where Chad was that week and that day that he died. I want to know where Chad's cell phone was that day.
Somebody's looked into it, you know, on the police, so to speak. You know what? I don't think it's coming in. I mean, it makes for great pretrial publicity. You know, the Black Widow and all her dead ex-husbands. Then Tammy Daybell gone. I mean, it makes for great drama, but I don't think it's coming in unless they have some email or diary whereby they're confessing, it's all laid out in my big, brilliant master plan.
I'm going to send you a video, Scott. I know it's different than the norm, but I believe there's a coded email and I worked on it. And I think that's why I want to know if Chad was there. Chad was there. We got issues.
Yeah. But, I'm a firm believer. Maybe it's just the criminal defense attorney in me, but basically my position is, hey, if you got it, bring the charges. Let's do this thing.
Right.
And they don't. If they did, do you think they would be sitting on it? No. That's bringing those charges.
But Tammy, they would sit on, right? Potentially.
Well, if the prosecution wanted to, just devastate the case that they have now, and I think the defense has some real issues to overcome. But the reality is, could you imagine, they indict or charge via complaint and information, both Vallow and Daybell as it relates to the death of Tammy Daybell? That'd be huge, wouldn't it? So yeah, if they were going to do it, do it.
But do you think they would wait for maybe Tylee and JJ's info to come in? Do you think they have that information now? Because for a while they're still working on Tylee and JJ, right? On their autopsy and whatnot.
Yeah, but my position on the whole autopsy thing was they've been investigating this case as it relates to Tammy Daybell. The missing link, the missing piece was supposedly the autopsy.
Yeah.
So once they got the autopsy, which is going to have there's no blood, but if they took stuff from bones and things like that, they have some amazing ways. Unless they're waiting on some test somewhere, they should know what the cause and manner of death is. So,
okay.
So charge it if you think there's some foul play involved.
Right. So if it was natural causes, would they have sealed it?
Well, they did in this case because they're basically saying there's still an ongoing investigation. But okay. But once again, how much more do you have to do if you think it's there? I mean, that's me. I mean, I've had cases where I had a dead baby case once where, basically said, hey, if you got charges, bring it. They didn't. They had to go and find an expert. And, and a year later, they came back and rearrested my client. So, who knows exactly? No one knows. And, and to their credit, they've been pretty tight-lipped over there at the DA's office. There's not a lot of leaks.
No. Go DA. But let's talk about Mark Means, because I know how much you love him.
I have great respect for Mark Means. I think he's doing a fabulous job.
Maybe not so much as a criminal attorney. Someone asked me this. They said, when attorneys do these motions and requests for the court to do this or that, like Mark Means did with cell phone request and the last name thing, are they really serious about it, or is it just a delay and distraction tactic?
It could be a combination of both.
Okay.
I mean, not that attorneys are supposed to file frivolous motions. Normally, if you want to, have the DA working, you send off discovery requests to them. Hey, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. Let them go work on that. It's a distraction that they can't work on the case as things tick closer and closer and closer. But sometimes it can be done just for harassment and delay. But I would go about it smarter than that. The old saying that, you want to play games? I got more games than Milton Bradley. Let's play games.
Yeah.
I can do that. But there's just some things that I've seen Mr. Mark Means do that I just don't understand. Even as it relates to prior joining in for Chad Daybell trying to disqualify Mr. Wood. I didn't see anything there. And I'm a defense attorney, and I'm telling you, I wasn't offended. There wasn't anything that I saw was inappropriate. If there was, I would have called him on it. I'd be the first one to say it was completely inappropriate, but
I guess they had to go after something.
And that's why, everybody seems like they get mad at me lately, is because, well, you said this and how can you say that? I'm just calling the way I see it, man. Like, I have no, I'd be the first one to call Mr. Wood out if I thought that he was doing something that was unethical. But to this point, I haven't seen anything. And my opinion will change if there's something new that comes out. But from what I've seen, he looks like a pretty straight-laced prosecutor that's like, listen, I got enough evidence to convict your people. I don't need to do those silly little games.
Yeah, I'm doing my job, so let me do my job. But of course, I mean, you got 2 against 1, so to speak, right? And they're after it. And good for Rob Wood, because you start seeing him going, oh, okay, motion. Yeah. And rightly so.
And we talked about this in one of my videos where, you try to get along with everybody. But if you start taking jabs at the district attorney, pretty soon there's going to be no informal conversations. Like, we'll talk on the record.
Yeah.
That's it. And you're kind of seeing that with the flurries of motions for things that should be able to be resolved amongst counsel.
Yeah.
And, Mark Means, or not Means, Mr. Wood has said, when he's not accusing me of being a liar and things like that on that interview that was supposedly so evil. It's just, I don't know. I don't think he's done anything wrong. And if he did, I'd be the first one to call him on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. So I'm sure everybody was confused other than John and Mark. I think I even saw you talk about, you were talking about Mark Means when he was first filing a couple of these things, and you're like, well, usually that's exactly what you said, I believe. You said you just get on the phone call to the other, the other lawyer, you have a little chit chat, and it is what it is. But all of a sudden you're getting this and that coming through. And you think it's going to get worse? Do you think it's going to start being like?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that Means and somewhat Mr. Pryor feel like they've been wronged in some way. And, so they're going to keep coming at him. But, what are they, like 0 for 5 at this point? I mean,
I think John's upset because Rob said Chad was so scared he's going to pee his pants type thing. And he's upset at that. And then Mark's mad because he called him basically, inept at doing a job as a criminal attorney. I think that's what it is. They got their ego.
He didn't say anything that wasn't true. He said the guy's not a primarily practice in the area of criminal law. What is untrue about that statement?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing false about that.
Exactly.
So,
even Flame Lily says here, Means was butthurt because Rob told Summer that Means is not experienced as a criminal lawyer. And it's the truth. It is the truth. So it's like, why are you freaking out? There's nothing wrong. Just say, this is my first crack at it or whatever.
And hopefully he told his client that, I dabble in, occasional DUI or maybe a protection order, restraining order, whatever. But I haven't handled a case like this, which is basically a homicide trial, just without the homicide charges at this point. Hopefully he told that to her. And the other thing that I can't fathom is a criminal defendant has a right to be at every stage of the proceeding, the critical stage of the proceeding, which is basically every motions hearing.
Yep.
Why are they not? It's all via Zoom from the jail. Why are they not participating? I don't get that.
I'll tell you what.
My clients want to be in court.
I can't speak for Chad, but I can tell you what my thoughts are about Lori.
Sure.
She has black hair to here and blonde hair down to here.
That's probably true. I think I got yelled at when I said her roots were showing things like that.
But it's a concern if for somebody who is all about vanity, and she is. I mean, she was dying, and I know this from Annie Cushing, who's Tylee's aunt. Lori was dyeing Tylee's hair when she was 2 years old to make it more blonde. So now I can't say that's the only reason, but I wonder if it's part of it. We heard this from a couple people. I think it was family members who were saying Lori always likes to look beautiful. So you're coming out, either that, or perhaps she's having a real come to Jesus talk, the real kind, and going, holy crap, my kids are dead.
Maybe. I think it's probably the vanity option more than likely, because it was starting to, her roots were starting to grow out early on in the proceedings.
Yeah, well, now it'd be halfway down her head.
Yeah, and I don't think it's coming out black. I think it's coming out gray.
Well, there you go. Well, wow, is she going to be fully gray?
Just saying.
I'm lucky. I just have the little bits here. So, I'm still okay, but I'm a little bit younger than her. But still.
I understand. Occasionally I see something in there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't. No, this can't happen. I am not.
I know.
I am not getting old.
I refuse. Oh, it's hilarious. So a couple weeks ago, as a side note, make things lighter, I dyed my hair because I have, grays coming, and it went black. It went really black, and people were all over me. That is horrible. You look awful. Oh my God, you look so old with your black hair. Like, well, it's hair dye. It's gonna, good thing I'm not a makeup channel.
Yeah, well,
simmer down.
I have the same haircut I've had for 25, 30 years. So this is as good as it gets.
It is what it is, right, Scott?
Yep.
Shelby says, will they turn on each other?
I have said it once and I'll say it again. The threat of imminent incarceration tends to break the bonds of loyalty. Right now, they don't have that much to lose. It's 10 years. If you got maximum sentences on each charge, consecutive 10 years. if there was something where they would have a little more incentive to talk, I think somebody would roll in a heartbeat.
Who's first?
Oh, I think Chad Daybell. He's a survivalist. He's going to look out for number one, I think.
He is. He's the runner. Remember, he's ran a couple, not according to John Pryor, but he's a runner. He's fled numerous times saying, I don't know her. I don't know her phone. I think he's going to protect himself. I think he's the weaker of the two, I believe.
He wants to go home. His kids are basically grown.
Yes.
And all of a sudden he finds himself in the, frankly, he's probably safer with her in custody as long as she's going to, remain there.
Out. You think number 3 and number 4 is dead. Wait till number 5 is too.
Seriously, you think that guy ever was, when they're laying in bed in Hawaii, I can't believe we made it here. Yeah, sure. 3, 4 previous dead ex-husbands.
Yeah, no big deal.
But I'm different. She loved me, right? Do you think he actually had slept with one eye open, just thinking what's going to happen to me? Are we going fishing tomorrow? Deep sea fishing, get fed to the sharks?
Fall off the boat. You have to a little bit think of it. It's like, geez. So let me guess if he isn't involved. Let me get straight. Number 3 is dead. Number 4 is you at 5. I'm number 5. Wow. And then both of them are the similar thing. So Chad uses manipulation saying, well, Tammy's grandmother speaks to me. And every year on Tammy's grandmother's birthday on September 23rd, which just happens to be the overnight when JJ died, speaks to me. And so he was using that as, hey, Tammy, you need to get off the computer and stop playing those computer games because Lucille told me that you need to get off there. So he's using the same thing against, it's like the perfect crap storm with each other. Lori has this to him. She knows her manipulations. Chad has his manipulations. And together it was one giant storm. It was one giant storm. And this is what we're left with.
They're two manipulators.
Yes.
That's the best way to describe it. Maybe they deserve each other.
They get each other now, and so to speak. They can sit in their portal potty and talk to each other apparently, while they're summoning whatever they're summoning beyond the veil.
Yep.
Let me see a couple more. I know you're probably gonna need to eat before you do anything tonight. Hey,
we're good. We're good.
Okay. A lot of them talking about the charges against them. If you think that these charges are coming.
If they're going to bring charges, let's do it. You know what I mean? They either got it or they don't.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the bodies, they can't piecemeal this thing. There's a thing in the law called compulsory joinder. You can't piecemeal a case saying, oh, we're going to get them on this, and then we're going to charge them on that. If you know that these are all there, all connected, you got to bring the charges, because let's say they go to trial, they get convicted, then they get new information. The first thing I would raise is, say, Judge, they had their shot at a homicide case. They didn't bring it.
Okay.
That's what I would argue.
So time's of the essence then on these. If you have it, do it. And unless they're waiting for the final results of Tylee, let's just say, then could you see that being it? If they wanted to see, a cause of death, or maybe you might not be able to find that with Tylee. But.
Yeah. And it does get complicated when you have bodies that have been in states of decomposition or been, attempted to be destroyed, things like that. It's definitely an issue, and it takes longer to do some of those things. And I'm sure everyone will say, oh, it's COVID, whatever. But if they had to get it done, they'd figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. This is nerve-wracking. This is very nerve-wracking. I think it's going to be one of these things like, are they, aren't they? Are they, aren't they? And I'm sure the DA is going, please, let's just find out one way or another. Whereas John's probably like, whatever.
Hey, he's got his retainer and the lien on the house. So
Yeah,
he doesn't probably really care which way things go at this point. It's just like, okay, I'm going to get a house here when he can't pay my legal bills.
right. So let's just do little things like this to make sure I definitely get the house. And then go.
Well, that's why we can't do that here in the state of Colorado, because there used to be people that would take a lien on the house. And when somebody got convicted, they said, hey, that's a conflict. You should have told me, because how do I know you didn't want me to go to prison so you could get my house?
Right. So yet they can still do that though in Idaho.
Apparently so, but you can't do it here.
Have you heard of Flypaper Lida? Lida Southard, her name is. She's in Idaho, one of the first serial killers in Idaho.
I have not.
Okay, I'll have to forward you that video too as well, because I was connecting dots to that. She had 6 husbands and 7 husbands. Actually, the 7th one, I don't think she actually married. 1 went missing. 3 or 4 died, but she was getting flypaper and boiling it back when there was arsenic in it. And then she would feed it to her husbands. And one of her daughters actually died too. And so what was eerie is the parallels between Lori Vallow and Flypaper Lida. And so she would be on the run. And this is like went on and on and on. And she ended up getting her trial in Boise. So I was laughing when John Pryor really wanted the trial in Boise. I was like, well, just like Flypaper Lida. She went, you'll love this. She went to jail. Okay. She escaped from jail. She full on escaped, had somebody waiting for her outside, escaped jail. And then the second time, I think this was the first time, the warden actually would take 3 of these girls, Lida being one of them, and take them to the movies and take them to, take them on an outing and then return them, and never had a problem.
Yeah. I mean, smaller communities, that's the way things are done. I don't think they take them to movies anymore, but, you can usually in a smaller jail, you can get the breakfast made to order.
Okay.
Particularly up here in our ski towns, people have to
Interesting.
go to jail. They're like, oh, I mean, yeah, they kind of, small population. Everybody knows everybody, it is
Yeah.
what it is. If
Yeah.
they're making eggs, why not, how do you learn them? Scrambled or over easy?
Well, I just found that interesting. I think you would find that interesting, this case, because there were so many twists, and it was always, she would convince him to get an insurance policy because she learned that, the first husband type thing, the husband's brother died. They got the insurance, and then all of a sudden the first husband died, and then it would just keep going. So they were starting to put 2 and 2 together. And what she did is she volunteered or something like that to grow the roses in the garden at the jail. But there was a trellis. And so she figured out, and she escaped, went over there and had a guy waiting for her. And I guess she just had a magnetic personality. And these guys would just meet her, and they would say she was the best wife. She was the best wife ever. Kind of like you hear about Lori in Pryor. Amazing.
Rocks his world, and just, I mean, look,
died.
With what's his name for for Chad and Lori, clearly they had something going on before Tammy's death. And, he was probably loving this. It's like, this is great. I've been married all these years, little romance, like she rocks my world.
Here's this former pageant woman, and she's, this and that and blah, blah, blah. We've been married for 5 times in our previous lives, or however many times they were married before in their multiple probations. And I mean, okay, so tell me something that maybe here from the legal standpoint. Lori's taken Charles, who was dead at the time, takes his credit card, goes and purchases a bunch of stuff for Chad and Lori's wedding. How and no charges? I mean, is it like the points moot? Beforehand, why no charges?
Yeah. Well, when somebody's dead, you usually need that person to come in and, they're alive, to come in and say, did you authorize this person to use the card? So if nobody can come in and say that, then how are you going to
But my argument would be, well, that's precisely why he wouldn't have been able to give you right.
I agree, but I mean, you would think, right? Somebody's dead, their card's being used, like somebody's taking advantage of the situation, right? But how do you, the prosecution has to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. What if, they just sit there, get up and say, I was given permission. I had permission
that's
to
the
do so.
loophole she knows.
How is that not reasonable doubt?
She did the same with Tylee's bank card.
I understand. And that's a little different because that should have, but in the big scheme of things,
right?
We're talking a couple $100.
Yeah.
The United States Attorney's Office is not going to prosecute that charge.
Yeah, he's looking at.
Yeah, the feds. I mean, it'd be a federal crime because it was her Social Security card, and there's just nobody that's going to prosecute that time. It's just not worth the time and effort.
Okay, so what if she served her 10 years time? She starts pulling a few things like that again. You can yank it back and charge her. Like, I mean,
probably the statute of limitations would have run 5 years for most federal offenses. So
that's
probably not.
I mean, it's little stuff, right? It is little stuff, but at the same time, it's like, well, there's a pattern of behavior here, and the law does not apply to her, and so in her mind, it seems.
Well, one could certainly argue that, and I don't want to get into the whole sociopath, psychopath thing, but one can say that the people that just think the rules don't apply to them, the person that always parks in the handicap spot because he can or she can.
Yeah.
Rules don't apply to them. That's kind of classic sociopath type of stuff.
Behavior. Well, I can't even tell you how many people said, are there charges coming? I'm reading this whole slew of stuff. Yeah, it's basically the same thing over and over, the same question. But somebody asked, will the Daybell case involve the weird religious beliefs they were following?
I think if you want to see what the trial is going to be like, you simply have to go and look at the preliminary hearing. They obviously only had to present some evidence, and that's not all of it, but they had to present some evidence that there is probable cause for those charges that are there. That's basically going to be their case. It's just going to take a lot more witnesses because at the preliminary hearings, the detectives could talk about what other people said.
Well, how does that work?
They're going to bring in all the phone data people.
How does that work with Tammy Daybell then? Because there's multiple people. They could only essentially talk about, at the preliminary hearing, they talked about Tylee and JJ. But now what if they find something on Tammy? When does that come into play?
Well, that would be separate charges.
Yeah.
And it'd be really a separate case. So it probably wouldn't come in at all.
I see. So if it is, they would bring it different kind of charges, and then there would be a preliminary hearing in that, and Yeah, because you can't really lump it
all over again.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. That is crazy. Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll let you go and for the day. Thank you so much for being on and hanging out. Like, this is awesome. Right? Sure. People are loving it in here. They're loving it. Okay. Let's ask let's see if you guys have any other questions here. Do you see any there, Scott, or can you see any?
I thought I saw something. What about complicity to commit murder? I think I saw that a couple of times. Complicit with who? Alex Cox? You need something to tie it all together. You need somebody or something. And I think that's been the biggest hindrance in this case, is that Alex Cox is dead. And I think that's why the prosecutor hasn't brought charges, because I think they believe that he had something to do with it, but he's no longer here. So this is what they can, they can try to make stick.
Yeah. Elizabeth says, Scott, how do you feel about the Morphew case now? No statute of limitations on murder, though, right? And would Lori be considered a serial killer then, in our opinion?
Yeah, I think the Morphew case, it's something's just not right. Let's just put it that way. and I don't know Barry Morphew from Adam. I did hear, that there's a rumor that he has a new girlfriend. I wasn't aware of that. And that just, I think people need to look into when did that little love affair start. And just, this is my own curiosity. Who would want to date someone when your wife is missing? And somehow a lot of people think that you may be involved, like her family who maybe got to know you over the years and maybe they don't like you, but still, I mean, I got divorced. I still talk to my ex-sister-in-law, my father-in-law. So I like to think that they, I'm a decent guy, right? They're not accusing me of murder or anything. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, who would do that? I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like we were talking about Chad when he rests his head at night. I mean, wouldn't you go, okay, you're guilty or you're not? Clearly she's with him. We think she believes he's not. Okay.
Yeah.
So then she's going, well, you were married to your wife for 26 years. She's missing. Nobody's found her yet. It hasn't been a year yet. Aren't you hoping for her to come home?
You'd think, right?
It's a little odd.
It's very odd.
But I will say what was also odd is they had a huge search for Suzanne in September. And Barry he was not involved in it. And you would think with the skills that he has, the skill set, because it said that he's an expert tracker, he's a hunter. I mean, he's a landscaper.
Yeah.
And, right?
Well, let's just say if Barry Morphew had come to talk with me, which he has not, I would have said there's no statute of limitations on murder. And by the way, don't get a girlfriend. That would have been my 2 words of advice.
Yeah, regardless
of whatever he did.
Yeah.
If he did anything at all.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they would say he did nothing. We'd give him the presumption of innocence. I'm not saying he did anything, but that would be my advice. Make sure you don't get a girlfriend, because that's going to be the first thing that people are going to ask. When did a new girlfriend come on the scene?
Now, here's a question, because he sold his house and he sold his lot. Mm-hmm. Here's the other thing. Okay, fair enough. He's going to sell the house. It was sold for $50,000 more than he bought it for. And the lot was a $15,000 loss. Mm-hmm. Now, anybody can sell their own stuff. Well, I look at that going, okay, I get why you're selling the house. Why are you selling the lot? Like $15,000, because you're not even paying closing costs yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And
weird.
And I don't know. I mean, he must have had a very, successful landscaping business, but you can buy a lot of house in the Salida area for, 1.6 or whatever it sold for. That's a lot of house up there in the mountains, even with our skyrocketing prices. I mean, I don't know. I guess he just wants to get the heck out of Dodge and out of sight, out of mind. Hopefully, if I'm not here, the police aren't thinking about the case. Maybe that's just, I don't know.
Maybe. Or maybe.
But I think I'd want to be near where the alleged crime scene was, so that I could continue to search every day, right? Just like OJ.
Right. That's my
OJ's out there searching for Nicole on every golf course he could possibly find.
It's true. It's true. I actually lived for a short while in West LA near where they lived. I mean, it was years later, but I remember that. That's funny. Becca Lecca says, my 2 favorite crime chatters. Great conversation. I mean, time's flying, Scott. We've been doing
Becca Lecca.
I think we're okay. Let me see. There's a couple things. Actually, I have a couple of questions or fun questions for you. Oh, no, wait. Somebody says we got to get to this one first. How does Scott feel the YouTube true crime community and their involvement in cases more the YouTubers with boots on the ground. So basically, what is your thoughts about YouTubers who are boots on the ground, so to speak, versus just reporting on cases? Does it help or hurt ongoing investigations? And from a lawyer's point of view, if a case ever did go to trial and was affected in some way with boots on the ground reporting, how would that hold up in court?
I have no problem with boots on the ground as long as they're reporting factual information.
Yeah.
Not trying to twist things, like there it is. Any good investigator is going to go to the crime scene. Any good attorney is going to go to the crime scene, assuming that they can go look at it, check things out, get a lay of the land. I have no problem with that. Just be accurate in what you're reporting. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And who knows, maybe they come across something that the police didn't know. I mean, police have limited resources. And if somebody's out there and, turns out to be legitimate, how is that a bad thing if it brings people to justice and cases to resolution?
And sometimes that's what happens, or you come across somebody and maybe you have a conversation and it leads to a different part of the conversation the person never even thought of. Is like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I should be calling the cops on this. I mean, something minor, right? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much good stuff on Netflix. I mean, I don't want to get too off in the weeds here, but there was that documentary about, was it Don't F with Cats?
Yes.
With a guy. Basically, the internet brought this guy to justice. Like, how is that a bad thing? There was the one just recently about the hotel in LA where the lady disappeared.
Hotel.
Yes, I think you were in that.
No, that was Stephanie Harlow.
Stephanie Harlow, that's right.
Yes.
And I've done an interview with her. She's but I remember seeing her on there. I'm like, I know her. She's a YouTuber, and sure enough, she was. But once again, I think everyday people didn't let that case die, and it kept pressure on people. They went back and they investigated and looked, and ultimately they found out what had happened. But how is that a bad thing? As long as, you're not like, the Flat Earth Society saying, oh, it's because the Earth is like legitimate theories. Like, let's look at this.
Yes.
People have more resources and knowledge than the police do oftentimes. And so why not bring that to aid?
Yeah. And what's interesting, when we go back to Don't F with Cats, that's a Canadian case.
Yeah.
And here's from a Canadian perspective. What we hear on the news, what we hear in the news in general for crime is very different than what the US does. Okay. I can get so much more information in the US than I can in Canadian stuff, unless I work with the families directly. Like I'm doing one right now about a missing guy from December. And I'm chit-chatting with some of the family members. But with Don't F with Cats, we didn't get any of this version. We got, here's a guy, this is what happened, right? Just the police version, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea it was Canadian sleuths that solved these murders. I had no idea. So when this Don't F with Cats comes out, I'm mind blown, like, holy man, and these guys are going to great lengths. So I think, this is why I think a lot of YouTubers can do some really great things if done responsibly, right?
Absolutely.
They can do really great things. And I think it's going to be helpful for law enforcement. Like you said, here's the thing. I do timelines. I put things together. You don't know. Maybe law enforcement sees my video somehow, some way, or somebody's video and goes, holy crap, we just got evidence in this afternoon. And this actually ties in with it. Let me look into that.
We do some every now and then kind of mix in some missing persons, unsolved cases type of thing. Yes. And, the sheriff has their flyer up, maybe something on their website. But how many people does that reach? The sheriff says, oh, look, I told, tells the family I put this up. Maybe there's a little blurb on the news. But, YouTube, can go across the world, the country, just like that. And somebody could look at something and say, ooh, there's that tattoo. I know somebody had that tattoo, which leads them to, they tell a friend and they tell a friend. Then it gets back to the police, where simply the police wouldn't have the resources to do that. So, yeah, I mean, as long as it's being done responsibly and respectfully and, not with some agenda other than the truth, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to change the game in a lot of ways. One of the videos that I'm going to be working on, or I have been working on, so anybody watching, 2,200 of us hanging out with us today, I'm going to be doing a video on Ray Rivera, but I'm doing a couple parts to it. So I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar, Scott, with Ray Rivera? He was on Unsolved Mysteries. His case. He lived in Baltimore and turned up going through a rooftop at the Belvedere Hotel.
The name sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't know the specifics of it.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So basically just takes off, and the family finds him a week later, and it looks like he went through the rooftop of this hotel and is found in a vacated office at the Belvedere Hotel, not until a week later. And all kinds of things were found, a cryptic note at the back of his computer. It's very cryptic. And so they're saying Baltimore's like, the police are saying this isn't a suicide. This is a straight up suicide. But then there's some crazy things like alarms going off at the house, and, cops are saying it's a squirrel, and just weird things. And so I'm diving into it. I'm going to do a couple parts to it. So everybody stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming. It's fascinating.
Sounds interesting. I'll be watching.
It's interesting. Okay, so question for you. Since you've been doing this for 2.5 years for Crime Talk, right?
Okay. Yeah.
What's your favorite aspect of doing it? What's your favorite?
You know what I really do? I really like doing the lives. And whether it's our Tuesday night show or doing something like this, I just really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Answering people's questions, hopefully explaining something. There's people that, and like I said, I tell everybody, I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney. That's my perspective. But I haven't drank the Kool-Aid so much that, every defendant is innocent. And,
right.
Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the law. Is it going to do it? But it's nice every now and then you get somebody that says, you know what, Scott, I never would have listened to a defense attorney. They're just scumbags, but I kind of like you. And what you're saying makes a little bit of sense. So I'm going to listen, Yeah. And that's the thing, where maybe I said, hey, explain the process. How that was the goal of the show. And at the beginning was to simply explain the legal process, the terminology. What does this mean? Why do they do it? What's the prosecutor thinking? What's the defense thinking? Where people say, wow, I didn't really understand that.
Yes.
And now it makes sense. That was the goal of the program. And here we are 2.5 years later now, which literally feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
And, we did, maybe a show a week, and then it was, now we try to do 5 per week, Monday through Friday. Some weeks are easier than others, but
I understand that.
But yeah, that's what I like about it. I like the lives. I like explaining, interacting, with people. When we do our Patreon, we have people that can call in. Some people are still shy to call in. They wanted to do the chat, but I like the calls where you can talk back and forth.
Yeah, that's cool.
We've had people from literally like, hey, I'm from Idaho and I live, literally here. And okay, great. So if I were to come out to Idaho to check things out and be boots on the ground, where would I fly into? Where would I stay for, get a good meal kind of thing, stuff like that. I just enjoy talking to interesting people, and most people are interesting.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like the lives, I 100% agree. I love lives. I love the community. People who watch are so super smart. They're just, they pour themselves into these true crime cases as well. You have been a great resource, even for me going, okay, what does that mean? I gotta go to Scott's channel. I gotta figure out what this is. I do. And I loved your channel before I started my channel.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and it's great. And the fun thing is, my family knows, even my husband knows, that my dream as a teenager was to become a prosecutor. So this would not normally be a conversation like, I'm gonna have a defense attorney on. But you're right. I respect you. I respect your channel. I respect your work. And so, if I have lots of questions on that. I can understand most things. I'm not, I'm a pretty smart girl, but there's still things I don't know. I'm going to hop.
And I hope most people, know this. I mean, when we talk about a story, we talk about the law. I'm giving you what I think the facts and the law, what it means, how it will turn out. And, I don't know if anybody's keeping score, but I can't think of a time where I've called it wrong, where I thought, oh, this is probably going to be the result. And if I were, I would admit it, got it wrong.
Yeah.
I just tell it the way it is. I get more people upset with me. Oh, I can't believe this. You must be some right-wing Trump, blah, blah, blah. And then the other day it's, oh my gosh, you're just a left-wing liberal criminal defense attorney hack. And I'm thinking to myself, I must be calling it straight if everybody is saying that I'm on one side or the other. I'm just here, laying it out.
Well, and here's the thing. Sometimes what happens in court doesn't necessarily mean what should have happened in court. Let's just say, in my opinion, not always. But I mean, you may say, yeah, this is exactly what I set out to do. But what I'm saying is sometimes crap happens. I'm not talking about anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have 25 years of experience. You can probably predict a lot of things. Like, this is most likely what's going to happen. And it turns out, because that's been your experience and right?
Yep.
If people are going to be mad, yeah, they probably are. But doesn't mean, I mean, I'm not going to agree with everything you say, and you're not going to agree with everything that I say.
I don't need it. I don't need, a channel full of, people that just say, oh, Scott, let's have a conversation. Maybe I'm wrong. Change my mind, but lay it out for me. You know what I mean? Lay it out for me. I'm fine with that. Heck, I was married and, divorced, and in a very great relationship, but I know when to say I was wrong.
Yeah, I hope you learned that, Scott. That's a partner 101.
Exactly.
Right? On either side, right?
I can tell the lovely Miss Kristen, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm wrong.
Does she get you to repeat it though?
I'll repeat it.
You repeat that. Simply Susan says, talk about the psychic working with law enforcement. Do you have much that happens there where you have to go through documents with psychics, that kind of thing? Or is that like just they use that as a tool? And if it happens, I mean,
I do not think I've ever had a case solved by a psychic. Maybe occasionally there's something. I guess the case we had a couple of years ago in Telluride, there was a lot of psychic stuff, but not anything where anybody could say, "Ooh, they got it right."
Yeah.
But who am I to say it doesn't work? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, just your experience. That's what your experience is.
Because I mean, law enforcement has to look at it and say, "Okay, how do I get this into evidence?"
Right.
The psychic said to go dig right here. Well, if you don't find anything, they got to put that in a report. Why were you digging there? Oh, the psychic sent me. I mean, a defense attorney's going to just shoot them up on that.
Yeah. Unless there is something that's found there and then they go that route, right?
Yeah.
Mama Pink says, I can't wait to watch this when I get off from work. My two favorites. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been great. It's crazy. I can't believe it's been 1 year since I've been on your channel. I mean, it's really bizarre. Where did the time go? Because, I mean, and I believe I have you right after that. And I think I ended up getting mouth surgery. It's like my wisdom molars went. And I mean, that happened. And I didn't even do live streams at the time. And then I started live streams. And then I was just finally like, I got to get Scott on here. We got to get him on here. Yeah,
no, I appreciate you. Asking. I appreciate it. It was fun. I can't believe, what was that, an hour and 50 minutes?
We're doing an hour and 50 minutes.
It does not feel like an hour and 50 minutes at all.
Well, thank you. I think that's a great thing. And yeah, I mean, we're just chit chatting. I think we talked a little bit on Friday too. And time just flies.
Yep.
It's awesome. And maybe what we'll do is, have you back on, especially when the cases start going, and you might be super busy, but when you have a moment, maybe you can come back on and we'll talk about the cases of both Letecia and Lori and whatever else we're covering.
Absolutely. And you can come on to Crime Talk as well. We'd love to have you back.
We could talk about it and get into it. And 2,100 people are still hanging around here, 21, 26. And if you guys haven't checked out Scott's channel, go to Crime Talk. I have the link in the description below. You guys can go check him out and subscribe, and also check him out live, because you go live every Tuesday night.
Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time.
That's awesome, 6 p.m. So everybody's just super stoked about this, and it's great. And this is going to be available anyways for people to review. And if you guys have any other questions, now's the time before I call it a night. And yeah, it's been really, really good. I really enjoyed you being on, and
I appreciate it,
because we know there's going to be some interesting things in the next couple months
that
we'll have to talk
about. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff here coming in real soon, and it's not going to be pretty, particularly when it comes to Letecia Stauch.
I wonder if she's going to produce Eduardo. I really do. Somehow. I don't know how she's going to do it, but
I'm not sure, because you'd think law enforcement would already been able to find him. And all our calls are monitored.
We know he's fabricated. However, I'm curious if she will. Ooh, one question they're asked, this is great. Zulema, the use immunity. Can you speak a little bit about that before we end the night?
And just Zulema is
Zulema's Alex's wife.
That's right. Trying to keep all the brother and sister-in-laws.
Yeah, she's the one who asked the detectives the same day that Alex was found deceased and said, "Am I going to be a suspect in death?" But she apparently has use immunity.
Yeah, I mean, basically what that means is that anything that she tells the police and testifies to in the witness stand cannot be used in a prosecution against her in any way, which basically means they're not going to prosecute her.
So she's safe.
She's safe.
In whatever she knows.
At least up to this point, unless she does something to violate her, use immunity agreement. But anything she testifies to or tells the police beforehand, or the prosecutors, they can't use it against her.
Wow. Yeah, I figured to be like that, but man, I mean, it could be all kinds of things she knows. Even if the police, let's say they get some new information, she has use immunity, and that's covered even to new information as well?
Yeah, and unless it involves a violent crime, a homicide, then usually it's not, nothing's going to be used against her.
In her affidavit, I went through it, and she said something that Alex was in Idaho with his niece, or he had some niece and some friends there. It didn't say two nieces and a nephew, which I found very interesting, because technically she would have said two nieces and a nephew and some friends, not a niece and some friends there. And that's when that was before the use immunity came out. And then I was like, oh, you bugger. She knew all kinds of things. So
it's funny what people will say when they have protection.
Yeah, well, protect you. Sing like a bird. Elizabeth Gregory says, Scott, I still want my propeller. What's that all about?
It must be one of my propellers, my polished propellers that we used to have sitting up here.
Okay.
Yeah. One of these days, if I had enough propellers in time, we'd polish them all up and give them away.
Oh, that's cool. I read that. Well, because I know you have your own plane, right? You fly?
Yeah, I fly.
What do you call it? Crime Talk 1? Is that what it's called?
Exactly. Crime Talk 1,
Yeah. And you have a puppy named Winnie, an English bulldog.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
She actually, Miss Winnie the Bulldog, we set up kind of as a joke, her own TikTok, and she's over 500 subscribers already. Yes, Miss Winnie the Bulldog.
No way.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, how do people go on that? How do they find that?
Just, I think she has an Instagram and a TikTok. It's Miss Winnie the Bulldog.
Oh, that is hilarious. I'll have to look it up.
Yep.
All right. So it's awesome. Well, maybe, hey, the Canadians cannot go down to Colorado for court. Maybe one day you can come pick me up with Kristen. Come pick me up and take me down to Colorado.
We'll swing by, come up north, pick you up, and we'll swing back down to Idaho, and go check things out down there.
We should
Madison County.
road trip, crime talk, and it's a crime. Let's get into it and let's talk
Yeah.
about it. All right. Thanks so much, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today. It has been fun, and we'll do this again. And make sure you go check out Scott. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Linda.